So this morning, I showed it to folks earlier. Brandon may not have seen it if you've not been on Facebook. So today's, let's see if I can do this with a shortcut. Yes. All right. Yes, with a couple of clicks of the keys, I can change the camera around. So this was today's Shakyo Plus. And the passage was, I'll read this again, and this isn't like one passage after the other. This is several passages. I mean, you know, there's breaks in between. Shift in. Right. So the passage reads, seeing that you have peacefully attained the enlightenment of the Buddha, we too have obtained benefits. Congratulations, how glad we are. All living beings are suffering. Being blind, they have no leader. They do not know how to stop suffering, or that they should seek emancipation. Let us find the place from where this light has come. This is from chapter 7, Lotus Sutra. And on the illustration, and you can, let's see, I think, Francis, you're not on Facebook, but everybody else is. Are you on Twitter? Okay, well, sorry. Anyway, so the lighthouse depicted in the illustration there is one of North Carolina's famous lighthouses. We have several. And so most of these writing, you know, this Shakyo exercise, it's just random passages. I'll open up the Lotus Sutra, not quite bibliomancy style, but just open it up and just read either that page, and if nothing comes at me on that page, then another page. And that's pretty much how I did with this one, except I did it. Yes, I was reading in the Lotus Sutra yesterday and identified the passage, but I opened it up to, I think, chapter 6, right at the end of chapter 6. I just kept reading, and I ran across this passage, and I'd recently been, someone had mentioned to me that they didn't have they couldn't say that they had a well-established practice, Buddhist practice. And so I, you know, was got to thinking about that, and this notion of what is a good practice, or what qualifies as a good practice, and then coupling that with comments that I hear occasionally or have heard where people say, well, we're saying that my contribution to peace or to, you know, harmony or to goodwill or to spreading Buddhism is small, unimportant, or maybe non-existent. So the notion of what is a good practice and what is a contribution, and how great or how small is our individual presence or our individual practice, a contribution. And so first, I'll take the second one first. We too have obtained benefits. So because the Buddha attained enlightenment, we benefit. If he hadn't attained enlightenment, he would have been a poorly known or maybe even unknown Siddhartha from some place in India, and would have been forgotten shortly after, because the place where he was from was wiped out. It was the village, the little kingdom, was attacked and wiped out, and so we probably would never have heard of Siddhartha, or maybe even the little kingdom where he lived. We might not have known him, but we do, and we have these teachings that have spanned time, you know, close to 3,000 years, and still viable, still a major world religion, a significant factor in world religions dialogues. You know, thanks to people such as the Dalai Lama, who is, he's a political figure, but he's out there and people know him, and they feel that connection to Buddhism through him. We have, our own religion, Nichiren Buddhism, from such organizations with a lot of money and the means and the resources to do marketing and communications. So Gakkai, we know about them. So Buddhism has spread and has continued to spread. So in a way, we could say that the benefit from Shakyamuni's enlightenment is still going on. It's still effective. It's still working. We're still receiving benefit from the Buddha's enlightenment. But he's not here. We're not in close connection to him. We're not even nearby. And yet, we're getting benefit from that. So our own presence in the world, just our very existence, we change things. When you're not here, you're not impacting things. But wherever we go, we are contributing either in a positive way or a negative way. We're contributing to that environment. If nothing else, we're sucking up oxygen. No, I believe we're doing more than that. That was a facetious comment there. So we are impacting. We're causing change in that environment. And we can choose how we wish to, what kind of change we want to, or what we want to contribute. Do we want to do good? Do we want to do bad? Or do we just merely wish to stay neutral? And again, there's no such, really, there's fundamentally no such thing as neutral, because even neutral causes a change. It's just neither good nor bad. So we have a choice. Do we be nice to people or do we be mean to people? Do we be an asshole or a good guy? We have these choices. And, an analogy that I've used about reincarnation and rebirth, the idea that if you take a gallon of water and you add a couple of drops of chlorine, you have purified that water. If you add a couple of drops of oil, or just even one drop of oil, actually, that's all it takes, you've polluted that water and it's no longer good to drink. Even boiling probably wouldn't help with that. So we have a choice. Are we going to help purify the water in which we live, the stream in which we swim, or are we going to pollute? I myself would rather swim in clean water than in polluted water. And that's within my power. That's within my control. And my experience generally, if not, every or not just generally, but consistently, my experience has been that when I'm doing good, when I'm nice to people, my lived experience is different. I'm happier. I find things easier to get along with, to get through. Even the difficult moments, because no one's life is perfect. No one's life is trouble-free. Monday, I took my car in, and $500 later, I take my car out. So no one's life is completely without troubles. But if we go into a situation, a troubling situation, if you will, if we go in and we're in reasonably good cheer, or at least a good frame of mind, good temperament, then chances are that the thing that is troubling may upset us, but may not do so to the degree in which if we were, say, angry or upset before we walked into that situation. And we see this with, people, road rage or cashier rage, whatever they call it, when you're in the checkout line and somebody goes ballistic. They're carrying something, and that contributes to whatever it is that they just experienced. And I think that you may have had similar experiences where you go into a situation and you're in a pretty good mood and things are positive, and something bad happens, some aw shucks moment. And yeah, it's upsetting, it's troubling, and maybe you do get angry, but you recover from it faster. You're able to settle down. You're able to realize that your life is not at risk. Maybe just the next 5 minutes are. Or maybe it might take you a year to recover from some financial thing. But it's not the end of the world, and it's not the end of your life. So when we engage in such situations, and if we are moderately good to good, then we can get through that situation by not contributing as much toxic stuff, as much negative energy. You think about the person that goes ballistic in the checkout line, and the cashier is standing there, and it's not necessarily the cashier's fault, or maybe it might be, but it was just an accident. That cashier probably did not wake up that morning and plot to get that person or to get us all. Maybe they did, I don't know, but odds are that they did not. So when we go ballistic on that cashier, think about how it feels when somebody goes ballistic on you. It hurts. It's a pretty heavy burden. And happens over and over and over, even if it only happened twice in a day. I remember when I used to work cashier in high school, and somebody would be mad about something, maybe something back then, prices, we didn't have scanners. And so we just kind of had some memorized, to kind of speed things along. 69 cents was a common one, that if it was kind of a big item, 69 cents. If it was a small item, it would be 35 cents. Don't know what the price really was, but that's, just to kind of get things going. Well, you guess at the price and it's the wrong price, and person feels like they're being cheated and they get angry or upset. And, I had one person grab hold of me and it's like, wow, that's pretty heavy. Well, it would take me a while to kind of recover from that. And the grabbing incident, I still almost vividly recall. So it takes time to heal from those things. And, if that cashier doesn't have any healthy means of healing, then what have we contributed to the life of that person? And that just goes out, because that person is interacting with people that you didn't, but you may be impacting. When that cashier, if it's a mother or a father, goes home to their family, what do they bring home? What will we ask them or tell them or force them to bring home? And that's just the bad stuff. But if we contribute, if we decide to do good, we often don't get the feedback that we've made a difference. That can be challenging. When I say thank you to a cashier, or I'm really nice to them in line, and I'm intentional about looking at them in the eye, and they don't respond, and I don't blame them sometimes. It's like they've had a rough day. They don't want to look at another customer. They just want to get the transaction finished. Well, then how am I going to deal with that? How do I deal with that? At first, I will admit that I would be a little resentful and get a little passive-aggressive in my response, trying to elicit something from them if it didn't come naturally. But eventually I was able to move beyond that, as I knew I needed to, that I'm doing this not for me, but for them. So trying to brighten their moment, if not their day, just a moment. Well, that's something, that's at least not a negative. At least something bad didn't happen during that moment. And that's kind of the way I look at it, that we go through our life and we are practicing Buddhism. Whether we say it or believe it or not, our life is impacted. Our life has been changed by our exposure to Buddhism to some degree or another. We have taken on some of the teachings of the Lotus Sutra. Now, we may not, each of us, manifest that 100% of the time, and that's okay, because it's a process. But in this moment, each of us has been changed by our contact with the Lotus Sutra, by even just a moment of study, perhaps even just this Dharma talk this morning. So our life has been changed. And when we interact with people, we also change other people's lives. We don't know about it. It doesn't make front page news. People don't pay large amounts of money to go to a coliseum to hear me speak. You know, I'm unknown, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that we're not making a difference. And that's how I kind of look at it, is that we don't know the impact. Maybe our kind word just might help someone get through a very difficult relationship at home. That's all conjecture, and a lot of guesswork there, but we don't know. We do know that if we do bad, if we put toxic crap into our environment and put that on other people, that does cause harm. And it would stand to reason that when we do good, that causes good. And that's my proof, if you will. It's not proof at all, but that's sort of how I look at things. From this passage, we too have obtained benefits. And when we're good, when our life is positive, when our life is just shining internally, even if it doesn't glow out externally, we're causing other people to have benefit. So all living beings are suffering. Being blind, they have no leader. They do not know how to stop suffering, or that they should seek emancipation. So people don't know that, and that's okay. We're not necessarily speaking of it. We're not talking to them about that, and that's okay. If we can be a bright light in someone's life, it's a difference. And maybe this time they don't say anything, but maybe in the future they will ask, wow, where's that light coming from? Why do I feel happier in this moment? And I have had that experience where someone, and maybe each of you have had an experience where someone you've interacted with over numerous times randomly says, wow, what is it about you? And then you could say, I don't know, maybe it's my cologne. And then you realize, oh wait, no, it's the Lotus Sutra. So, and let us find the place from where this light has come. And about our consistent practice, this notion of, first of all, I have no clue what a formal concrete practice is. Is that a rigid compliance with some organization's rules of what must be done at morning and evening? Is that what it is? And if that is what it is, that's bullshit. Pardon me, but pardon me and not pardon me, because that's exactly what it is. Our practice has to be from ourselves. The guidelines, hopefully they're considered guidelines, of how we should, where we should start with formulating a practice are guidelines. And I could be wrong. It's always possible. And I could be right. I believe, though, that our practice has to be, especially in this time, our practice has to be a little less rigid, a little less formulaic, a little more creative, a little more inclusive of others in our environment. The notion of going off and practicing in front of the Gonzan by oneself, leaving the rest of the family out there, just hovering and waiting for you to get finished doing whatever it is that you're doing. I think that is inappropriate for this time. I think we ought to creatively look at how our practice might be more welcoming, more engaging, more inviting, if you will, as opposed to excluding. And I have some notions about how that might work. I don't know. It's not something I have to really concentrate on here, but I do think about, how do we engage a comprehensive practice? But the notion that because we're not following someone else's dictate about how our practice should be, I think is harmful. And it helps to, I think it causes a separation between what we can do joyfully for the Lotus Sutra and what we feel obligated to. And I think that we gain greater benefit when we practice with joy than when we practice out of obligation. And so